The year is 2016. The Thunderbolts were invited to participate in a new event called the Marble League. Their members at the time were Bolto, Bolta, Bolti, and Boltu. It's important to remember their names because those names would eventually change. But that's down the road. Right now, it's the first event of the 2016 Marble League. In balancing, they did not do too well, and they finished in 11th. And due to the weird 2016 scoring, that was 0 points. But then, they podiumed in the next 3 out of 4 events. They held first overall after those 4, and the next 3 featured consistent middle pack finishes. But a bronze in team pursuit put them back into first place. The next 2 events proved to be pretty fatal at the time. Only 1 point was scored between those 2 events, but they still held first overall. Their lead was very small, so small that a gold medal from one of these top 4 teams could swing this whole competition, and coincidentally, all 4 ended up in the final. Bolto made a last-second lunge, but it was not enough. Their hopes of a championship win died as soon as the official picture came out. They were so close, but they still finished on the podium. All seemed well for the team, and going into 2017, they were majorly hyped, especially when it was released that a new point style would be adopted, one that actually favored their team. But they wouldn't do as good as everyone thought they would. This right here, the opening ceremony of 2017, is where the downfall begins. Now the next 2 Marble Leagues. We're going to go a little bit faster because I want to talk about a moment that shocked the Marble world. So, let's start with 2017. Their start to the season was actually pretty good. They finished the first event in 8th, an okay start for the team. But it was better than their start in 2016, giving the team a little bit of a confidence boost early on. And it showed in the next event, as they scored a bronze in long jump. Bolti was the marble to get the bronze, and this early medal propelled the Bolts to 5th overall. Now sadly, their start would be their highest achievement of the year. And as we look at other years, you'll notice it's a common occurrence. Their next 7 events featured 6 events where they didn't even place inside the top 10, and they dropped all the way to 14th. Now, although they were out of title and even podium contention, that actually might have been an advantage. In role language, the sign language of the Marble world, Bolta said, quote, "We must finish strong. There needs to be some light to this year." And they did just that. The Bolts got a bronze in archery, 1 more bottom half finish, and then another bronze in the final event. A strong finish indeed. But did that momentum carry? Weirdly enough, yeah. After just 3 events in 2018, they were 8th in the standings. Then something crazy happened. They won an event, their first gold medal since 2016, ending a 24 event drought without a gold medal. Unknown to them, however, was that this would be the start of a new drought, one that is ongoing. Now back to 2018. This start had them at 2nd early on. But what was that I said earlier about their starts? Their start would be their highest achievement of the year. And as we look at other years, you'll notice it's a common occurrence. And I'm sad to say that it remains true here. But it wasn't too bad. Their problem this year was consistency. The next 3 events, they only scored 19 points. But then they got a bronze, and then 16th, and then another bronze. They were at 5th overall, surprisingly enough. And if they had just kept that momentum going, they would have finished top half. But instead, they got 12th place and 9th place to finish in 9th overall. It was an okay year, and many teams have seen worse than the Thunderbolts. Not to mention they had 3 events where they podiumed, and one of those 3 events they actually won. There was pretty much no indication for what was to come, especially since teams that were significantly worse didn't even do this. Now what was this? This was retirement. Now usually JMR retires teams because they're irrelevant, but the Thunderbolts just quit. All 4 of their members had enough. A perfect example of the high expectations they all had since 2016. This moment was frowned upon all across the world, with many comparing them to other teams who have even failed to qualify but still fought hard. This was so disappointing to the fan base, a big punch in the gut, and it seemed like the Thunderbolts themselves would fold altogether with no team. But they didn't. New members were called up: Bolt, Lightning, Shock, and Thunder. The latter is now the captain. In a way, this was basically a rebuild for the team. Now, how has that gone? Well, some would say even worse than before. And, well, I'd agree. They qualified for the 2019 Marble League, and they had a great start, keeping the tradition going for the team. 1 6th, then a 5th, then a silver was their start to the year, and they were 4th overall. It seemed like the rebuild had worked. The Thunderbolts were ready, but not ready enough. Little did we know, that silver would lead to something worse rather than better. It would lead to the worst streak imaginable in marble sports, the medalist streak. The rest of the year was bad. There was even a little stretch where they placed in the bottom 2-3 times in 4 events. It was awful, but somehow they were invited to Marbula 1. Now this event, they did not start well. They had 0 points in the first race, 10 in the second, then 0 in the third, and another 0 in the fourth. It seemed like their season was probably over. Then the next 2 races completely changed that. At Greenstone, they stunned the world by earning a silver, and then they did it again at the next race. A clutch move by Shock propelled the Bolts into second, and were the only host to podium at their home court. It was a major high. Now, they were in 6th. All they need is another podium, and they would be right in championship contention for the first time since 2016. So how'd that go? Well, at Razway they got 0 points, then at Midnight Bay they got 2. Another disappointing finish after solid podium finishes. On the bright side, this new group had been able to do what the old group couldn't. They were able to finish in the top half, something that had not been done for the team since 2016. So they looked to end their medalist drought in the next Marble League. They qualified once again, giving them their 5th appearance. This year would not be like any other year, and that's not in a good way. The start was bad, and now we're going to go through the whole year on this timeline with a number beside each event. What's the number? That's the amount of events in a row with no medal. Now cue the sad music. Their medalist streak reached 27. That's tied for the longest medal drought. But they had one bright spot: Collision. They were able to finally end that drought and win a medal. It was great, and they almost tied with the speeders as well. So maybe they once again get a solid finish in the final event, like 2016 and 2017. So did that happen? No. They placed 15th in the finale. And that finally brings us to the present. Many questions came out of the Marble League 2020. Was the silver medal just another start of a long streak? Or could it be a sign for better times? Only time will tell. But for now, we wait and we see what comes out of this. Who knows? Maybe they could be like the Minty Maniacs. Nonetheless, they'll look to repeat their 2016 success someday. They'll look to climb after falling so far down.